last year as the mayor. Although it is very enjoyable, it is also very hard work. I would also like to thank Councillor Adrian Carter for his work as the Deputy Mayor. You might even notice I've got very large handwritten notes because I can't say either. Can we do the minutes of the 2014 town meeting? Is it all up?
Yes, Mark, they're on the seats. They did go to, it'll have been the May meeting last year of the Town Council to note, so it gets them into the public domain, but the formal approval is this meeting tonight.
So,
am I the only member of the public that was at that meeting last year?
No.
No, Dan, town meeting was.
No, I was there last year.
Oh,
There was only 4 of us.
Yeah, what you got here, from the person present from last year.
Only
can't remember another
George
two.
is the only one that's here tonight.
As a member of the public, you chaired it actually, Mark.
I chaired it last year. It was the last one.
Yeah, you Councillor Parker, I was here. So if someone who was there could actually move them as correct. Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Movement to correct record.
And
yes.
Councillor Parker has seconded.
Oh, are you here as well?
Yes. I'm not getting involved there. I think, Ma'am, you could probably just take them as read now they've been approved, and we move perhaps to item 4.
To discuss the ways the town's heritage can be used to promote Blyth. So, has anybody got any ideas on what we can do?
If I could sort of open it up perhaps, Ma'am. I'll stand because I actually prefer standing and I might not wave my arms around as much as I do.
And the same for me.
This, some of us see as being one of the key areas for the development of Blyth in the future. Blyth has a terrific heritage, and what as a town council, both as councillors and officers, we'd like to do is to build on that heritage. I don't mean actually physically build, but to develop it. 2 reasons. Firstly, to increase the pride in the town. I think, you know, most people will accept that there are a lot of naysayers around, and what we'd like to do is to emphasise the positive. Yes, there are problems, but, you know, trying to emphasise the positive. But the second main reason for wanting to develop the heritage is because it'll bring in visitors. And visitors will bring in money, we hope. That builds a vibrant town, which leads to investment, and it's starting to assist in the regeneration. I think I've got to be honest and say, initially, we're looking at increasing day visitors. Although, and I know some people were opposed to it, there's the hotel going just along the way, which, if my recollection of the papers on the County Council's website is correct, they're looking for completion in 2016-2017. Now that is the sort of place where, with luck, and I've got to say with luck, we'll have people coming for perhaps a weekend. Now, why would you say people are coming for a weekend? There is such a terrific heritage here. My own particular hobby is 20th century warfare. Now, this as an area has got a fantastic heritage. You know, not just Blyth itself, but right up and down the coast. So, one of the things that we're looking at developing is a sort of 20th century warfare, for want of a better, defence is probably a better way, heritage trail that would bring people up, that would encourage people to come. I mean, it's going to get huge, well, you already know the publicity for the start of the first one. I find it personally a bit odd. I prefer the celebrations to be celebrating the end. There's going to be an awful lot of publicity around, so that's what we're looking to do. One of the things we can do, that we have been doing as a town council, is to co-fund with the county council a heritage officer, a conservation officer, just for one day a week, to come in and start assisting us in doing some work. And we'll turn to the buildings of local interest in a minute. He has produced a series of guidance notes for owners of buildings that are visually quite striking, and those are going to be on. Will be on the website, and we will be encouraging them. The sad reality, I'm afraid, is that the days of grants being readily available to assist in the maintenance of buildings have gone. There is still some money around, but nothing like it was nowadays, in the past. Just as an example, we're waiting, the last we've heard is that Pound Stretcher should be being started within the next, I think he said it was either May or June, the start, because we've had to go through a load of hoops. But that's used up the last of some money that was around, I think they called it the Heritage Initiative, it's Townscape Heritage Initiative, which will do some. But that sort of funding, unfortunately, at the moment, seems to have dried up. But one of the reasons that we're doing, and we'll turn to the list in a minute, is by recording it, it gives the owners, for when they're bidding for that little bit of money left, to say, hey, look, people have recognised the importance of this building or this piece of land. And it might just, you know, give them a few extra marks on the scoring that all these people do. What we have done, and here's an example, is we're creating what's called a list of buildings of local interest. It's not the heritage listing, the grade 2 star that English Heritage do. It's buildings that are perhaps architecturally just below their threshold, but also one of the things that we're particularly keen on is that we get buildings that have a social history importance listed and recorded. Because it's important that it's not lost. One of the examples, I don't know if we can get to it, William, is the station. We might not be able to get to it, was we were talking about this, and one of the councillors said, what about the old station master's house? Martin Kendall, our conservationist, hadn't realised that it was the old station master's house because it was just, you know, a Victorian building in amongst other buildings. Architecturally, nothing special, I would say, but it's gone too far, I suspect. But insofar, I think we discovered another one as well. There are 2 buildings left, and they're probably the only buildings left with which sort of are related to the railway heritage. Obviously, there's a Blyth and Time pole as well, but these were actually part of the railway. So, in the next few weeks, what we've done with this list so far is we've gone out to the owners and occupiers. We did a letter drop to them and said, look, this is what we're thinking of. And as you can imagine, a number of them have come back and said, oh, don't list my building, you know, thinking it'll stop them doing something with it. I think councillors, when they come to look at this in a few weeks' time, will hear what those objections are and will decide. Some of them, you know, are reasonable, and you know, you take balance. But once we've then finalised this as a draft, and I emphasise it as a draft, we're going to ask you, the people who live in Blyth who know it, A, what have we got wrong? You know, have we just missed a description? I'm trying to think, yes, I think there was one towards the end of Bath Terrace where somebody said, oh, you've listed it as 1920s, but in actual fact, It was built just before the First World War, in about 1910, because that's what the deeds that they've researched show. So, it's that. Correcting the errors. But far more importantly, is what we've not put in. What you'd say is, this came up, there's the station master's house. As I said, nice building, but nothing out of the ordinary that you'd say needs listing, especially because of its design. But it's is it the last, it's nearly the last remnant of the railways coming into Blyth. So the most important thing we're going to say to you is, what have we missed? Tell us what we've missed and we can add it. It may be, for example, that you say, oh look, number 25, Acacia Avenue, did you know that so-and-so lived there or was born there? Something like that, that would say, hey, yeah, let's just record it. Because, to be honest, if we don't record it, the information's going to get lost. When we've recorded and collated it, we can then start thinking about walks. Say, hey, what about a walk round? Even if on some of the buildings we perhaps say, can we just put a little number plaque, number 23, just a, significant plaque. So people would have a leaflet, get to number 23, and oh, this is number 25 Acacia Avenue, where Stephen Ricketts lived. Take an example. So we're very, very keen to engage with it. And it's not going to be a list that's ever closed. This is a list that will be amended as we go along. That's what we're looking for. I said we've got some ideas of how we can build a heritage. Obviously the port heritage, the mines heritage, but the other industries as well. And what we'd like are some ideas as to what we can do. We've not got a lot of money, we've not got a lot of resources, but if not tonight, think about it and throw ideas at us and say, have you thought about X and Y? We're not asking for any decisions tonight, it's just throw some ideas. It's really something that we're actually very keen on as a council to drive this forward, because it's a way of putting Blyth back on the map, bringing people in. And there are a surprising number of people who will do day visits to all sorts of things. So that's a thumbnail sketch. Unfortunately, we hope that Martin could be here tonight and he could explain it in more detail. Unfortunately, he was unavoidably actually had to go to the south of England. Madam Mayor, that's my 10 minutes. I think I was only allowed 5, but I'm really excited by this, and I think if anybody's got any ideas, thoughts, areas we should look at, over to you, Mark.
Right, thank you very much, Stephen, for your help.
Any questions or comments?
Anybody got any questions or any ideas they want to put forward?
I think it's very good about the trail, because obviously people that are keen in Jane Austen readers and things like that, that's exactly what they do with the houses up and down the country that are significant to those sort of authors and people of significance about past heritage. So yes, people do go on those sort of things. I think doing the houses is one thing, but for me, I don't want to be all doom, but one of the things that really stands me about the centre of Blyth is that it's so hard and with the thing, and there's nothing that reflects our history or anything. So if I throw some ideas at you, what I've been either part of or seen, sorry, from another area, but I think it's important that we bring different ideas in. Is one of the things that we did, or certainly the council that I was under, was actually did features in the centre so that you've got a coal mining industry, a past here. There's no figure of whether it be a water fountain, a monument, something that reflects your coal mines, the boating industry, the war, the connection of how it started, how a lot of the history is there. So you could tie that in and do something in the square to make it more, so people could bring people into the town. If they're going to do Charlton House, they want to also go in. And the square needs to be more, I want to say European, where they actually do the centre where you have the coffee, the bistros and that, in the centre where people can sit when it's a nice day and do. So it kind of links in better. So yes, do the houses, do the monuments, do the Blyth beach and all that. You've also got to have that. Then the other side you could do is the parks. You could also put significant, like I saw the news the other night, the lone soldier. You know, I know you haven't got the money for maybe that, but those sort of, if you could get a commission or somebody that's prepared business to maybe do something, you could have something made and put them in different areas of life, so it's a real trail and, you know, really opens it up for people.
So basically one of your suggestions could be the local cafes around the square could have one or two tables in the marketplace,
Yeah.
and people could go to the local cafes, have their teas and coffees in the
You
marketplace.
could make much more feature. You know, I mean, I've
Because,
got
that is
ideas.
one
You'll
of-
probably hate me for the end of it because I do know what's ideas. But
Yes.
the other thing is I think this is actually really nice for children and schools, and I'd really urge you to look at this, is to get some art people involved in representing a mosaic of your history and actually break up that square so there's something that people can visually come and take photos, but it really tells its own story. So what we did is each school where we were represented when they were doing a big circle of who they were as a school, but also something that showed your history.
That's a good idea. Yes.
If I can Mark, just to respond, I think your one of the things I like is public art, you know, the statues, and I always felt that one of the biggest missed opportunities in the North East is that terrific brick train in Darlington. And the problem is, it's next to the railway, but it's a nightmare to find. And yet it is such a visually, if you can find it, it's visually striking. So yes, I think there's some great stuff there.
Madam Mayor, last year, in January, I approached one of the churches in Blyth to see if they would help put up a memorial, just a granite slab, with not names written on, but to the people of Blyth who had died because of 2 world wars. Not the military, but the civilian. Now last weekend we were all down the battery, or most of us, but I had to park over by the graveyard. So I thought I'd have a look, being nosy. And I was surprised to find headstones to merchant seamen who had died during the war. Now there's nothing, it's things like that. How many people were killed in Blyth when the bombs fell? I mean, how many people here know about the wagon wheel that wound up in the United Reformed Church after a bombing raid? I mean, it must have been some big bomb to send the wagon wheel that far. And I'm a newcomer. The amount of people who use the Golden Hind pub, I believe it is, which is now removed. You wouldn't even know it was there. Mind you, the sign stood up on a wall for about 6 years, so it seems to have got up and walked. But these things are there. But one thing you must remember when you talk about the town square is market. The town marketplace is not as big as you think it is. There is one company, well, one shop that used to have tables outside for tea. It's closed. But that was on the public footpath. Market Street, vehicles go up and down it. And a lot of people don't even realise where Market Street is. But the market square, the market itself, is not a very big place. People think it's all that stuff that's down there, all that new stuff. It's not. It's very enclosed. It's got a road on one side and a road which has not been agreed to remove on the other side. It's still there, and that's beside Waterloo Road. But I agree with this young lady. Get the schools involved. If I could find people who have died doing their best for this country, but how many people sitting here now know, we all know there are 2 war memorials in Blyth. But can somebody tell me where the 3rd is on public view? It's got no names on it.
The hospital.
No,
Where's that one again?
These are new Dunham.
There's a one at Newton.
No.
Brilliant.
it's in Blyth.
There's one next to the church.
One at that side.
Well, I've said that one, that's a war memorial like you know it. But up Union Street, there's a plaque on the care home. And it's a war memorial on the plaque. That's the 3rd one. Is it Beaconsfield Street?
That is what I said, hospital. It used to be a hospital.
Or was it? Yeah. That's,
It's that sort of thing that I would like to get us recorded in the buildings of local interest is a new area, but it's that sort. Even if something has gone completely, take the old Sydney Arms for example. It's now there. Why shouldn't we record that it was there? I'm using that pure as an example. And that sort of thing. I am aware of the highway issues in the marketplace, and they're not insoluble at all, but they need to be addressed. We've had some dialogue with the county about it, and so but yes, it's that sort of thing. The merchant seaman, I'll confess, my father was a merchant seaman, so it's a subject very close to my heart. I would like, and my colleagues know, us to have a flagpole, so on the 3rd of September every year, which is Merchant Navy Day, we can fly the red ensign. I do at home, but I would like us to fly the red. I actually got the county council to do it as well. So every 3rd of September, the red ensign's flown. It's Merchant Navy Day, which is one of the ones that isn't particularly well known, but yeah. So yes, I think that. I don't know, Mum, if there's any other.
and the submariners
Yes.
who always go 1 week before
Yeah.
the 11th.
Well, I think there is the submariners, the gentleman there.
Yeah, just to slightly challenge your earlier statement. You said that we were.
Can you give us your name so we
I do apologise, Stuart Smith. Yes, I would just slightly challenge your earlier statement when you said that it was a port, warfare and coal. I would say it's port, warfare, coal and a marketplace. We've got a very strong historical marketplace, and I know that it's not doing particularly fantastic at the moment. And I think one of the things we could do is maybe put on things like historical markets where we sell period goods. Like things where we go back to maybe like the market it's found, the kind of goods that would be on sale. It can be more of a historical heritage, as well as, people hopefully making a bit of trade and selling a few things. I know the World Fair market is always a favourite of mine, but I just think we could do more historical-wise, maybe get a bit of a bump for the market off the back of it.
I think that's a great idea. And the sort of clientele that you'd hope to encourage, as well as other users, might be interested in linking in with heritage trails and everything to bring it in as a, there's awful buzzwords.
John Potts, I'm glad that people have picked up with the idea that it's not just the buildings, it's the traditions, it's history, it's maybe a bit of land that used to happen. You want to recall
Like the parades that we used to
yeah,
have.
the parade, like round table carnivals, I know all sorts of things like that. You can just think about that. Can I just mention the marketplace as well? I know people think that we control the marketplace. We don't actually own the marketplace. It's owned by the county council. And the county council runs it. And there are issues there with roads and things. But just as well, going back to the comment about the coal mining in the marketplace, there are some coal tubs there with the names of the pubs on them. And the sculpture there as well, which open to interpretation, but some people think it's a mine shaft, and some people think it's a lightning structure, all sorts of things. But things like that, I think we need to record them and get them down.
I think markets there, sorry.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Colin Durwood, and I'm chairman of Blyth Battery.
I'll be a bitch on the camera.
It's interesting listening to people, and one of the things that you came up with, I'll just give you a quick resume of, I think everybody knows about Blyth Battery, built in the First World War. reactivated in the Second World War, was run by the Home Guard. Many people from Blyth manned it. Many people's families still comes down. And when you've had a hard day at work and you're digging weeds out the sand and getting told off because people's getting parking tickets, you think, why do I do it? But it just takes a little laddie to come along and say, look ma'am, there's my granddad's name up there. Hey, it makes it all worthwhile. That's one of the things we do. You mentioned about pavements and cafes. The week before our event, Alphabet Soup in Bow Street put an event on. We had like a 40s menu. Many of us went along dressed in uniform and sat there and drank tea and coffee and had a nice bowl of rabbit soup. We organised a football match during the First World War when all of the Blyth Spartans players were away fighting in the trenches. The women from the munitions depot formed a football team. They're called the Munitionettes. One of them went on to have quite a good career in women's football until, I believe, the FA stopped women's football in the 1920s. I know nothing about football, but I came up with the idea of a football match. So we had a football match at Croft Park. We're hoping to have another one every year up until 2018, sorry. And the winner keeps the cup outright. Submarine base. Yeah, a lot of interest in the submarine base. At the event we had a week ago, we had a group of reenactors who reenacted the Cockleshell Heroes. The reason we invited them to Blyth was it was a Blyth submarine, the HMS Tuna, that took them on their mission. They met many local people. One of them actually worked for COP. COP was a covert operation, there were forerunners of SAS and SBS. So there's another Blyth connection there. Heritage Trail. At Northumberland County Council's meeting, they have a one about coordination of World War I events throughout Northumberland. But prior to that, I had been approached by a tour company who wanted to do local tours, military trail. So I went one step further, and I've got an author who has wrote a book about Northeast War relics, who's putting together a book on a military trail through Northumberland. We're trying to get a little bit of funding to put together because before we can write the book, we actually have to drive the routes and walk the routes to make sure that's possible. It's no good saying you drive from A to B, find out you haven't got enough time. So we're just trying to raise enough money for to get a bit of petrol money for to put this book together. Hopefully it should be out by Christmas. Shipbuilding is another thing. We tried to put together a display at Blyth about the local shipbuilding. Because after all, we built the first Ark Royal aircraft carrier Blyth. And there really isn't a lot of reference other than what's in the local library. There's quite a few nice ship models. I don't know what's going to happen with the restructure of it. So that practically covers some of the things that we do. But yeah, it's very important. Some people say, well, Blyth Battery, it's, you know, the wartime relics. So is Hadrian's Wall. And one thing that I tell people when they've had me tour, the Romans built a wall to keep us out. We're a warlike fighting nation. Don't pick fights with Geordies. But let's just tell everybody about our good heritage, because we've got some wonderful castles and everything throughout Northumberland. And Blyth, I sing its praises whenever I can. And I've been on television a few times to do it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fox, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it's just to mention, don't forget the History Society in Blyth, because there's a lot of people there who are excellent historians. Gordon Smith, he's got slideshows of everything that's happened in Blyth, and he's not the only one. There's older people than him that can remember even further back. So they're a mine of information.
I think there's a lot we can do
Right,
to
Tom.
get it done.
Want to speak next?
Thank you, Chair. Tom Bradley from Community Voluntary Action. Yes, I mean, people like Gordon there, you know, and all the local groups link together in that respect, and that's sort of some of the work that we're currently doing with yourselves as a town council to identify some of the different groups and organisations who can maybe pull together to maybe almost like have a working group for some of the local historians and historical groups who could take some of this work forward. There would certainly be an opportunity to also potentially look at whether it's a Northumberland war trail or whether it's just a Blyth trail, to look at potentially some of the Heritage Lottery small grants side of things, which don't need an awful lot, but again could link in with local schools and education, and you know, and get some of that all going in as in a round, in a sense like that. So everybody's playing a little part, but obviously has some kind of investment and ownership in that whole process as well. So we'd be very sort of happy to do that, and again to continue to work towards that type of thing. But there are lots of groups, and we've got those contact lists, you know, for you, and we'll be able to pull some of that together.
Okay, much
But it
more.
does need it.
Anybody else would like to speak on anything? Craig?
Just one thing I found out over at Woodhorn, you mustn't forget Coupon Town. I have actually said to people who were born in Blyth, do you know Coupon Town? They said no.
That's okay. Do you know, John? Bob knows Cooper
That's
Town.
what they're covering some means,
Oh, right.
There's Cooper Square as well. That's all it is.
Earlier than that, Cooper was around where the shipyard is, because in 1700, no, I can't remember the exact date, there was 7,000 troops camped from Delable Hall to Cooper. They've been brought over here for a bit of respite from the Napoleonic Wars.
Of course, we've got a picture on the wall just back there.
Yep.
Of what it looked like.
Right,
I think, Ma'am, this is exactly what
yes, this is
I think
exactly
we were
what we
hoping
wanted.
for.
I know. I mean,
Some of you will regret having made comments, because we will be in contact and we'll take it forward. I think it's marvellous. Thank you, Ma'am.
Did the county council, when it removed Morpeth Road for school, take anything that we could use in the history of this town? Because that school was built in 1901. And I wanted to know why it was called Morpeth Road. I think a lot of people are surprised to find up to at least 1923, that's what Cooper Road was called, because it went all the way to Morpeth.
I suspect, putting an old county highways lawyer hat on, that it was a county road that went from Blyth to Morpeth.
And at the other end, there's the first school, Morpeth Road, where this was Morpeth Road first school.
Oh, yeah.
And the other school is still standing.
Yeah, roads, names change a lot.
Well, they do in Crawford, you walk down one street, it's got 3 or 4 different names.
And item 5, Ma'am.
Right,
Thank you.
it's a discussion of how the program can provide feedback on the operations of the joint team with Northumberland County Council. Is that you, Sue?
It's me, yes. I'll try and be as brief as possible. Last year we entered into a partnership agreement with Northumberland County Council. We were finding in Blyth that the service, care of the streets, litter picking, bush shelters weren't being cleaned, things like that was getting worse. And it was a diminishing workforce that was dedicated to Blyth. So the idea was that we would enter into a 5-year agreement, and that Northumberland County Council and Blyth Town Council would each put in the same sum of money every year for a dedicated workforce. The guy who was managing the planting and all the services in Blyth had 3 dedicated gardeners before this happened. That's changed dramatically. Last year we had, during the peak season, 32 people in the workforce in Blyth, 22 permanent members of staff and 10 seasonal workers. And they are working on monthly cleaning of bush shelters, the refurbishment and maintenance of public seats, the replacement of litter bins. Sean is our senior assets officer and manages the day-to-day working with Jimmy Blyth from Northumberland County Council And you most probably seen on bus shelters and litter bins, we've got stickers on now with a number. If you see any vandalism or problem with those assets, let Sean know and ring the number on there and let us know. But also what we're trying to do is improve the general image of the town. It's no good saying we're going to have 27 grass cuts during the season if the grass doesn't need cutting. So what we're developing is a team of people that are flexible. Yes, they'll do the grass cutting, but they've made a major push on edging all the grass. That would have been done maybe once every 3 or 5 years previously. Now it's going to be a rolling programme. They're doing shrubs, they're doing tree maintenance, they're doing weed killing on a different basis. And what we need is the public's feedback. We're a year in, let us know how you think it's going. Is there anything we can do better? We have regular monthly management boards for the partnership, and members of the council and the Northumberland County Council come together. Homes for Northumberland have just joined our group. We've invited Arch because they're building on the quayside and we think they should be involved. And we're trying to get all interested parties to give us information on what we can do better. The document that's on some of the seats, there's some spares at the front, is what Northumberland County Council are producing for the management board on a monthly basis. And basically they talk about the ground maintenance and what they've done. They talk about the street cleansing and the public realm. The public realm is a lot of the issues that we've pushed very hard to get action on. We've got more equipment, we've got all sorts of mini cleaners and high pressure washers. You know, we can get in and get things done. And the county have just invested in a larger sweeper that can go onto the likes of the marketplace and clean that thoroughly. And it's called a scarab, so look out for it. It'll be around the market area very shortly. So this is the kind of thing that you'll see on our website. Every month it'll be publicised what's been done. The final column is about feedback and comments. Now, we need that. We need to know, have you seen an improvement and what can we do better? We need Sean and Jimmy to experience what you're experiencing. If there's an issue that's been neglected, let us know. We had a problem in one part of Blyth with dog fouling. We had a observation set up with CCTV, and over a period of time of constant monitoring, 2 key offenders have been prosecuted. So things like that. Fly tipping's been addressed, but we can only address things when we know about it. And what I'd like to say is, have you got ideas of what you would like to see and how would you like to communicate with us?
Thank you, George.
Yes, Madam Mayor. It seems extremely strange we've got an efficient force, and yet 2 footpaths or footways right where I live haven't seen a brush in I don't know how long. Actually, somebody set fire to furniture on the footpath over the weekend, believe it or not. That footpath is full of glass. The other one we christened Pooh Alley, because we wait for the rain to come to actually clear the dog muck away. All right, it's only a yard wide, but it's used by children, their parents, cyclists, and the aged, and it's hardly ever cleaned. If it gets 2 cleanings a year, we could have a party to celebrate the fact.
Tell us where it is.
Huh?
Give us the address.
If you could give Sean the
No,
information
no,
after
that's
the
not
meeting.
feedback.
You want the feedback, I'll give it to you tomorrow and tell you exactly where it is and show you.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, right.
We've
That's
only
what we-
addressed issues that people have told us
With the
about.
footpath,
I think it is really down to that, the feedback. I'm always saying to people that unless we know the problem, we can't do anything about
Yeah.
it. So communication is key. And it's great. It's just we're probably quite a few people obviously dedicated and want change. But we've got to get this sort of information out.
Yes.
Now, it's great having the web, as I said, but it's always word of mouth. You know, you can spend thousands on advertising, but generally people want word of mouth. And if they know that they're going to be acted on, that's the key, isn't it?
Yes.
So the change. So we can do our bit, but we've got to find a way where the engagement officer comes into it, there's some sort of paper that's given out.
Well,
It's
we're
not too
really
heavy.
talking with Tom about the ideas of Liam, perhaps having a pop-up office and
Yeah.
appearing in different parts of the town and things.
And just, I wouldn't do it quite on this level, but what I would do is key things. So people find really offensive is the dog fouling, the rubbish, you know. I mean, as I found coming up here, you're very exposed, aren't you? And being near the port, the bins are just completely always blowing out. So, you know, some days you can go out, it's lovely.
Well, we have people come down here especially to empty their cars of rubbish and bring black plastic bags of rubbish.
But that is our key point. I know it's where it looks, but that is the key point of
Yeah.
me.
So we'll do that, but so
Yeah.
people really feel that that is something. So I think if it affects them, they're more likely to.
We've arranged additional emptying of those bins, Sean's putting additional bins in.
But there's so many other issues. I mean, I'm looking at that, and one of the things that I have a problem with, and I'm sure I'm not the only person, because I know I'm not the only disabled person in Blyth, is cars parking on pavements. And so I either can't get through, there's glass on the floor. Luckily I've got a new chair that it can't be punctured now, because that was one of the problems I kept getting down south. But the curb levels where people are parking in town, where there's a drop curb and then parking, and then I'm still stuck. So I'm having to take a bit of danger and going round. So it's that whole way of educating people and getting them to think.
Well, I believe that county have made arrangements now that the parking enforcement officer will take action because for some time there was a conflict of issues. Everyone thought that there was someone enforcing the law and yes, that's
Yeah, the lady there.
Yes, I'm
Jackie Wilson.
Jacqueline.
There's a couple of things actually. The road sweepers, how often do they actually come around now? Because they're not coming. It used to be, you could say, once a fortnight. I live on a main road
right.
and they're
We've
not
got a
sweeping
schedule
as often as
for
they
that,
used
for the
to.
road sweeping.
Yes.
And homes for Northumberland have their own schedules, don't they? Right.
I'm
What
not,
about
I'm not
the-
finished. Get back.
If you let Sean know where you live, we'll
Right,
Yeah,
get
if
back
email,
to
if
you.
you email it in and
right.
And we'll
specific
let
areas.
you know
Yeah.
the schedule.
It's like I'm a lollipop lady and I see the lads getting
Yeah.
dropped off away to pick
Yeah.
litter up.
Yeah,
They never actually do Winship Street.
right.
They get dropped off on Winship Street
And then
and go
ignore
straight
it.
down in Elliot Street.
Okay.
And it is actually like a wind tunnel
Right.
on Winship Street.
Yeah.
There's a bag of rubbish being stuffed into a tree for a fortnight now.
Yeah.
Do you know what? And I
That's
actually
sort of
thought
feedback
it
we
was.
need.
We
If you-
need that.
That's what we need.
Oh,
and
well, I
so-
thought it was the lads had tidied up and left the bags there to be cleared
What
away.
happens sometimes is the grass cutters with the
Uh-huh.
normal lawnmowers, what they do is when they empty their bags,
Uh-huh.
they will put a bag next to a litter bin,
Yes.
and when the lads are doing their refuse, they just pick it up. That's just so they don't have to go back to depot and carry everything.
And I want to
It's a
see
road
about with
and
that
program.
bins as well. I'll see about that. When I was at one of the meetings last year, we were not discussing, or were you not discussing, having the post put back on Waterloo Road so that people couldn't park along there. Because I'm sure that was talked about with the
That's the county council.
Right.
I believe
Oh, right.
they have said that they won't reinstall
The wall.
railings. No.
Right. Because there's a terrible problems along there now.
Yes, that's
Where
where
people
they're
go to
making
the bank and pulling their cars up on
Right.
on both sides of the road.
Yes,
There
both
was
sides.
a four-wheel drive actually
Yes.
pushing one of the flower planters
Yeah.
along the other.
I had to jump out of the wheel one day because there was a car
Yeah.
coming towards me as I was walking along.
And it looks like a car park on the front there, and it really is
Yeah.
major
But they
problem.
are enforcing the law there
Right,
more vigorously.
We did a study last year, I
Yes.
did a survey and had prices for putting bollards and that.
right,
Came to the town council because obviously the market is the county council
yes,
responsibility.
yes.
I passed all the information to the county council on
Mhm.
what they said that because of austerity cuts. I'm not going to look to put bollards in, but the traffic enforcement officers will be rebriefed and they're supposed to be.
Well, the money that they're getting, could they not use that money to put the railings there?
And we-
Because I'm sure they'd get it back anyway.
I give them like the prices of the bollards, how much it would cost,
Mhm.
different designs, and I was passed to them instead of
Right. Right.
We can ask them what,
Ask-
if we can
Same,
have
we can ask them as well.
Yeah.
We're in the same position as you, if we ask, and
Uh-huh.
they tell you yes or no.
Yeah.
Could I just come in and say that actually the money they get from fines has to be recycled into highway and traffic matters?
So it should come back.
Well, not
Well,
necessarily,
not-
well, it
not
goes into the
necessarily
highway
right,
budget,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think you may, well, I think it might be worth just a wee prod at them,
Yeah.
just to say,
So
how
that's
much
where
are you
raising
getting?
with county then rather than to
Yes,
local.
it is.
Right, okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Anything else?
I think that was it for now.
Just to take up with that,
I can't see that
So the
gentleman.
gentleman.
let him go first.
Yeah, just regarding this thing on Woodbine Terrace about deep cleaning of the roads.
Yes.
Was guy, I'll actually live on Briarwood, which is bottom
Yeah.
of Woodbine. Now, the guy number one, Briarwood's been complaining about the chippings and everything. The wagon come in, they've been on umpteen times complaining regarding it, because we got, the road that we get the wagons going up on their steelworks and that,
Yeah.
top of the road, sorry. Anyway, he's been complaining, they come in and they clean every street apart from Briarwood.
Right.
And Briarwood Road has actually got, in the gutters, there's weeds and that growing nearly a foot tall. It's an absolute mess.
They're supposed to have just completed the weed spraying. That
I
was
wish I could
reported in last
photograph
week's
before I
board
come down,
meeting.
because right outside of my house, I've got weeds to be packed.
They reckon the
I know
weeds are
the
going to
weed-
take a week to die back.
What's happened now with, obviously with the weather, if they know it's going to rain, they won't spray because it's just going to wash
It's
away.
pointless.
And obviously with the wind as well. But when they do actual weed spraying, it's going to take 7 to 10 days to obviously for the weeds to die.
Like I say, they put them chippings and that on the roads.
Yeah.
Like I say, cheap Paul McDown, I know it's all cobbles there underneath them,
Yeah.
before they were crap. But these wagons are coming down, they're just ripping it up.
It's the highways from county council, obviously do the highways.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We can speak
we
to
can
them.
speak to them and
Would it?
it's a,
You almost need a list, really.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have
I'm
a
sorry,
list.
Nick, I
Yeah.
appreciate that you're, but
We'll have a list from
Somebody-
today.
Rain will be taken.
it's accountability, isn't it? And if you're getting money in, and what they're doing to other areas, and you have to cover that, well, you're accountable, you're taking over, but you're not. It's, where's the money going? Because we're obviously not being kept up with the rest of the county.
Well, that's one of the comments that we're discussing at the moment, because when we set up the agreement for the partnership, we wanted to see the money coming in from both Blyth Town Council and County Council into the partnership pot, because the agreement states that any surplus will be ploughed back into Blyth partnership and you know, activities that are going to benefit Blyth. But the financial statement only shows our investments, so we're working on that. It's new, and partnerships are, you know, something that we're all having to learn as we go along. So I think we'll get there, but the staff on the ground are very much more flexible and enjoying more because people are coming up and saying, that looks good.
Yeah, it's like everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've shredded our national health, we've shredded social workers, we've gone through in Parliament.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, you can only slate something so long before people feel completely disheartened
That's
about
right.
the role. So it's really important to build things back up.
Absolutely.
But, you know, one of the things that I'm very clear on and what I've seen down south so much is communication. It's the biggest failure across the board. And one of the things I saw on our level was that there were great people out there doing amazing things and wanting to be the change, but they just didn't know what was happening. So you've got, you're very, you know, privileged because you know really what you've got on paper or what the idea is.
Yeah.
But we're the public, and what I'm seeing and hearing in 10 months is that nobody knows has a clue what's going on. People have lost hope, they don't have vision, and sadly that's all we hear is, they don't do this, they don't do that. And of course it can't help but kind of make you think, oh, should I have come up down here? Would I be better off down there? And sadly it isn't, but that's what happens when you don't get communication through.
Did you want to speak?
Well, yeah, sorry, I'll try to make my points as quick as I can. The street sweeping, I've noticed a lot of time the street sweeping, they follow the bin wagons out, not normally the same day. Well, maybe just for my specific street, but it's always, problem is that the bins are still out on the sides of it, so you can never quite get into the sides, because if you maybe followed it the next day down, then the bins would have been taken in. Don't get me wrong, he's a really good job, but he just can't quite get into the angles because of where the bins are.
What I do is I speak to the waste management team leader, because that's that's separate from the partnership, and just make sure and take your point on board and make sure
He does a brilliant job, he's there every day.
make sure the schedules aren't going to conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe tweak. It'd be best to easy to tweak hours, because obviously that means it's going to be like you've been with on Monday and Tuesday, whatever it is. That'll be the same as make sure on them particular days we'll make sure it's
Well, it is better, because it did used to come before the bins came, and then
yeah, because I know on a Tuesday on my bin goes, I know I've got to start at Sammy House and move it in because he's put it right in front of my driveway.
No, the other thing I noticed is I live on Lynn Street, which is pretty much just behind where Ronnie Campbell's office is, one street down. He's got around his office got down that part of it. It's actually got weeded last year and it looked fantastic, but it made the rest of us look like we're living in like Jumanji. It really blew up and out of control. And I thought, it might be one off last year, but it's getting the same now this year. It wasn't, I don't know if, if it was treated, it wasn't treated very well last
Pay
year.
your council tax, and this is something we need the information.
I know they are weeding around that area now, because it was brought up last week at the partnership board that they are considering that area. It was sort of done the week before because of the weather. I know they are doing that at Claremont Terrace
And the scarab can apparently
around that way.
lick the weeds.
Because it's not level in the pavement, and then there's more money, you have to feed in more money to get the pavement right.
But the weed is going down that area.
But can we
But
make
if
a
you say your
note?
street's getting missed out, or the weeds you probably won't be able to see till, leave it till next week.
Yeah.
If you can see the weeds haven't died, obviously you're going to have a look and see the weeds. If that's the case, let us know again, because it's a separate contract that's brought in specifically for the weeding, and what they're doing is, if they're missing things because of the weather, they keep going on different areas to keep the programme going, then revisiting the areas that they've missed because of the weather.
But
So
we
that's
have
what
to
it is.
keep on
But
top of
obviously,
that.
you let me know so I can get out there.
And the other one was just a last quick bit of positive feedback on the bins. I know we had a massive problem with the bins last year, and leading in it, and there was just weren't getting emptied everywhere, they were overflowing. I know Facebook was filled, it was like some kind of selfie gone mad, but I've noticed there's been a considerable increase in the emptying of bins, especially in the outreach places like over by the stairs at the back of Coopman, where I take your bike back, the industrial estate at the back of there. It's
When we first got the schedules, they didn't cover the whole of Blyth. And we said Blyth Town Council covers this area. Everyone pays their council tax and everyone expects the same service. So the schedules have been revised.
We have a set of schedules. Also, the bins, obviously we are responsible for putting the litter bins in, and what I've done now is we're now buying bigger drum out of blue bins now and replacing the postmark bins. And what happens is it's a less frequency of getting emptied, because obviously the thing is more rubbish, and it gives the team more scope to get every bin emptied, so it eases their schedule, but it gives you more, like, you can get around everywhere and a reasonable amount of time. Also start problems.
Liam,
Yeah, I was just going to say something brief, obviously, when we were talking about getting out. The prime example, I just checked before when it came out, and we'll put this on our website and on other things today, and people who've actually opened it and read it, there's over 150, we've reached 1,000 people.
excellent.
So that's like that, this is as much as we can ask for, but I would say, obviously, there's quite a lot of people here who do get on Facebook. If you could comment under that, that's superb for us, because it's a superb way for us to monitor it.
Well, I always share it on the
Yeah, exactly, but that's brilliant as well. I mean, we've got in Blyth,
Liam's technical.
but in Blyth as well, we do have a lot of people on social media. We've definitely found that, and obviously you can tell when people share things, because we get a ginormous amount of
Yeah,
amount of feedback where
Yeah.
we get like,
Yeah.
I mean, people, the recent one we put up one today about the tall ships, obviously
Yes.
the Argos is coming in. We've had people contacting us from all over the place, but we've also had nearly 3,500 people who've seen that in about 6 hours. So we do have a large scope. But again, I would just like to say that obviously with feedback, whatever the format comes in, but also for any comments and stuff, if you can address us through that, positive, negative, anything, but for also if you want to come forward to us with any events or anything that anybody can look forward, then please do come to us. I mean, it was a case of today, Sean sent me the press release from the tall ships. We put it up there and we've got it out to an audience that previously we couldn't imagine reaching by our the notice board that we have on the marketplace.
Or the news post leader, I mean, we find it very difficult to get anything put into the press.
They don't put anything in.
Or they edit it down so much that the value isn't there.
That's a bit negative stuff about Blyth, I've noticed that.
Yeah, but it's
Well,
like you say, like two
that-
granted on page 22, and the little thing.
Could I just say, I think the gentleman at the back,
Yes.
Mark,
Gentleman from the back.
Thank you. Just on the quick one on the issue with the news post leader, you're right, we don't put things in the paper. We sent out press releases about the event, never got put in. But as regards the car parking, from your comments, it would appear that the traffic warden has been neglecting the town centre and coming down at the beach at weekend, giving hundreds of people parking tickets for parking on the grass, which they've done for donkey's years, and they don't cause a problem. But obviously the ones in Blyth who are parking so you can't get wheelchairs down, seem to get away with it. But I must give a big thanks to the council who did rescind all the parking tickets. They can't be asking us to put events on and then use it as a cheap way of getting revenue. But would it also be possible to find out if they have any long-term plans to enlarge the car park? Because even on a normal Sunday when it's warm, there isn't enough car parking spaces.
They're going to default to the ranch car park straight away, and I noticed on the battery the car park there's a lot of spaces on the Saturday and the Sunday, but it's educated.
Yeah.
I know that the signposts.
We also have evidence that someone took a sign down.
Oh,
So
yeah. Like I say, it's getting people to walk down
Yeah.
there and all that sort of stuff.
Madam Mayor, I gave way to this gentleman because you didn't see him and he was getting his hand up.
Well, we have had him speaking, George.
Yeah, I gave way to it.
Yes, but
I was just trying to answer this young lady here about parking on the footpath. I would love the cars on my street to be able to park on the road. But I can assure you, 2 cars parked on the road means you might be lucky if you got a child scooter and got between them, because the street was actually built by quite a few in Old Blyth to take the cars from the 20s and the wagons. I mean, in them days, all the houses had coal, so the coal wagon could get down. But I can assure you, 2 cars on our street parked opposite one another, and you will not get down. And that is why people park on the footpath, to allow access up and down the street. But leave them, and I do agree, you should leave plenty of room for anybody who's disabled or on a mobility scooter. But these streets will never be widened, whatever you do. Our street is 4.8 metres wide, which causes a bottleneck for incoming traffic, outgoing traffic, because it goes straight on Hodgson's Road, right beside the roundabout.
Thank you very much. We're still trying to address the partnership and the feedback on that.
Yeah, but I was trying to raise my question after this young lady.
Okay.
Could I briefly just finish? That compliments isn't representative of what we have received, because in fairness, we have been getting telephone calls out with this period where we have been getting compliments. The call centres from Concordia have been ringing us and putting forward positive comments. Lots of people do address them by the county council, but again, I would, if you do have any comments, compliments or not, please do address them through us, because
we'll feed them into the
we'll
system.
feed them into the system, because it's a better way to get in the system and ensure that all people in Blyth are aware of what's happening with their partnership rather than address them through the county.
With regards to the dog fouling bit, I know Blyth, Ridley Park's had a lot of time spent with grass cut and everything. I walk 5 dogs in there every morning after most people go to the house with dogs. grass is cut one year, the next year go on, and it's just covered.
It's just educating people. It's like, say you're a responsible dog owner, I'm the same, I have 5 dogs, and I live at sort of South Beach, and the same, the grass gets cut, and I know the people who are doing it. It's trying to catch it.
I've seen them, I walk with 5 people with Jack Russell will come and mess up the tree and stuff like that, they just stand there and walk away.
Yeah,
You know,
it's educating
You get
people.
too
And then when you see
afraid to
two
talk to
fixed
the
penalties
police.
notice, you get that at night, at least there.
Exactly, it's catching them and
And it's fine, really.
and getting them, because some of them just don't care.
The lady with the hand up, I think we'll make you the last speaker because time's getting on.
It was more the railway lines, you know the railway lines, they're getting built on now by where the cemetery is.
Yes.
But from the bridge on, like, they're absolutely disgusting.
Oh,
It looks like nearly sewage.
It was,
So is anything being...
there was a project last year that County Council orchestrated with some of the wards, but we don't know what's happening.
Really,
It's not
Yeah,
about it.
they have to
It's
get
all
the
about the
owner's
railway lines.
permission to use it.
It was UK Coal who was
No, it's just
There's
one
sort of a
section.
private developer who's now building the houses on the Cooper Road.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with them about trying to use that as a public recreation space and to reclaim it and to make it into a grassed area and everything like that. I haven't really got very far with the owners themselves, but I have been in touch with them. So I'm very happy to talk to other people about how we could use that space.
Could we talk about open commons, urban commons outside?
Yeah.
Sorry, then.
That's everybody now. I'd just like to thank you all for contributing to tonight's discussions, and any letters that will be sent out by the office. I think it's been very interesting tonight, hearing everybody's what they'd like to see done, etc. And thank you very much for attending. Have a safe evening. It's one of the best things I've heard discussed tonight.